The story begins by showing the vast and oppressive territory of the Cazel frontier. Under the scorching sun, countless wooden houses and ancient cathedrals dotted the hills. But the sight was one of misery. The heat was extreme, and a severe drought ravaged the land. The fields were cracked, the crops were lost, and life was slowly fading away. People fainted in the streets from exhaustion, and despair echoed. "Has God abandoned us?" exclaimed a resident. "Are we really going to die of thirst in this ghost town?" A man, without sleep or water for days, his eyelids swollen and the sun scorching his head, walked desperately to the only hand-dug well there. The scene was one of calamity. Crows, cows, and all the livestock were dying. Filled with fear, the people fled to the surrounding area, abandoning their possessions, their lands, and their possessions, moving in the dead of night. However, upon leaving the city, something terrible happened. For the local feudal lord, Margrave Cazel, escape was considered a grave offense. Mounted soldiers positioned themselves in front of the retreating peasants, blocking their path with their weapons and preventing them from proceeding. The feudal lord's order was clear: eliminate anyone who left their land. The soldiers carried out the order without mercy, eliminating peasants in scenes of pure terror. At that moment, a child trying to leave fell face down and began to cry. A soldier approached, and the boy looked at his face with pure fear. The soldier, without hesitation and with a smile of pure evil, raised his sword and attacked the boy. That smile, that reflection of cruelty in a child's eyes, actually belonged to the son of Margrave Cazel. He was a powerful wizard, said to have the blood of divine kings flowing in his veins. A man with silver hair and a feline countenance, the true lord of those lands. In his noble robes, with his hand extended to his chest in a gesture of pure arrogance, he exclaimed, "Even beasts know that favors must be returned. Don't you worms know why you're still alive?" He, a snob, continued his speech, protected by his knighthood. According to him, the lives of those people were preserved by his grace, and the grace of those with divine blood. Listening to his words was a frightened woman, holding her child in her arms, crying and begging not to be killed. The feudal lord's son continued speaking with contempt. "And yet you try to run away because it hasn't rained in a while? How dare you be so insolent?" The woman in panic screamed, "No, my lord, I'm sorry, please. I beg your pardon." That said, at that moment something brutal was revealed to us. A soldier, in love with the feudal lord's son, mercilessly and pitilessly thrust a spear into the woman's heart. Her son watched in shock, unable to understand what was happening. The spear, piercing his mother's body, almost penetrated the boy's body as well. However, at that moment, he took a step back, dodging the attack. He was in complete shock. His mother lay dead and lying on the ground, while the boy lay in a state of latent terror. The feudal lord's son, with a mocking smile on his face, spoke to his soldier in an ironic tone. "How can you be so inconsiderate? It's not funny at all. I wanted to make her suffer before I died," he said. The soldier then apologized. "I apologize for my ignorance, young master." The tyrant then spoke, looking around. "What can we do to entertain you?" Turning the camera, we see 3 people hanging from a tree, and the women, holding their husbands, were crying profusely at the sight of this tragic scene. A self-sabotage against the lives of men. And the tyrant said, "That's right. The father supports the son, and the wife supports the husband," which meant he was heartless. He showed no compassion in the face of this scene of men being hanged by their soldiers. "We must find even better entertainment," he said. A soldier shouted to his tyrannical master, "This man has been stabbed, sir. Shouldn't I tie a rope around his waist? He'll die before the entertainment begins if I don't." The soldier made a dire suggestion as he stood over the man, his wife surrounding him, lamenting the situation. "Shouldn't this man endure at least as much as the others? He should also be hung from the tree, if you know what I mean." His wife cried, saying, "No, please don't do this," and threw herself at the soldier as he tied the man behind his back. His wife cried. At that moment, the soldier yelled at her and with his hand gave the peasant's wife a horrific slap across the face, causing her to cry. Soon, we were shown a horrifying scene. Her husband was hanging from the tree, and it was over. That tyrant was enjoying the situation, for he was a very evil man and found it entertaining. At that moment, the woman was tied to her husband, holding his legs under his waist as if to say, "My love, I'm here." But the man, already lifeless, lowered his head down, tied around his abdomen. She cried a lot. The tyrant lord shouted at her to listen. "Cry a lot, you lowly peasant. You're doing well, commoner. Lean on him well." And he explained in his cruelty, "Without you, sometimes your husband will faint and he will die. They will simply explode." That said, at that moment, while he was saying this to the woman, a man appeared with a hood, also revealing himself to be someone with divine blood. This man, apparently also an army commander, said, "Please don't treat the blood of the divine king so lightly. What you're doing is terrible." A soldier would then approach the tyrant, the son of the lord of those lands, and say, "Do you want us to take care of him?" But the tyrant would say, "No, you don't need to. I just need you to bring me a whip." And at that moment, the soldier brought out the whip. In an act of arrogance and wickedness, the tyrant then hurled the whip at the woman who was holding her husband without mercy, forcing her to fall to the ground. Even after being whipped and with blood pouring from her body, she still wouldn't let go of her husband's body, proving herself a faithful and courageous woman. At that moment, the tyrant left the place and passed by the man who tried to argue and said, "Smile, Zebeck. We should enjoy life, shouldn't we?" While we were shown that horrifying scene of several bodies stretched out on the tree, as if they were Christmas baubles. Later we see that the sun is setting, and those figures hanging from the tree are still there. One of those men, still conscious, is saying, "Sapphire, Sapphire, please go away. Leave me here, I was wrong. Please run away, my dear, I'm going to die. You have to survive." As night fell, we witnessed a fascinating scene. The woman fainted on the ground, and someone came and gave her some water. It was the man who had intervened in the peasant's punishment, Zebeck. He gave her water, told her to be quiet, and asked if she could eat, but she fell asleep because she was so tired. He remained there beside her, sword in hand. A few seconds later, he would try to wake his wife, saying, "I came here without anyone knowing, so I have to leave now. I will be punished if the young master finds out about this." And to his fiancée, "You don't need to hold him anymore. He's already gone. He's now on another plane, not physical, a place without suffering and without pain." The woman, upon hearing this, realized the reality. And even after her husband was no longer with us, she still returned to hold his legs in an act of persistence. And as she spoke, "Please tell me your name. I will ask the Herald clan to spare you when they come." The man, Zebeck, then, listening to the woman speak, wondered, after all, what is she talking about? The Herald's clan? He asked, "Is she talking about the Saint Killers? Those soulless heretics? Did she make a contract with them?" He asked this as we were shown the terrible scene of the cracked ground from the drought and her husband still hanging from the tree. Then she answered. Zebeck thought doubtfully, "I don't know if they really exist, but if they do come here, Cazel has 20 well-armed soldiers under his command, besides myself, and the young master is one of the noble bloods. He has powerful magic. I'm sure you know how incredible the divine blood, the blood of Yaegas is, don't you?" But the woman had the truth. With a morbid expression on her face, she countered, "Even if he is a mage, the Herald clan is capable of killing him. The reason they're called Saint Killers is because they earned that name after murdering kings with divine blood, right?" Zebeck tried to deflect, putting his hand to his face in an act of disapproval. "Lady, you're not thinking straight. Well, I don't have anyone who wouldn't be traumatized after something like that." He clenched his fists with strong confidence in his knightly abilities. "My name is Zebeck, a holy knight of the king's church. But look, I'm telling you my name because I want to. I'm not telling you my name so you can beg the holiness's assassins for my life. If they come, I'll fight with everything I have, even if it's my last day alive. Well, I'll leave you now and come back tonight," he concluded, turning his back on the woman and walking away impatiently. Sapphire remained alone, falling into a kind of delirium. 2 days, she said. Only 2 days left. She drew a triangle on the cracked ground. The scene cut to a beautiful scenic place with trees, houses, and sheep. A memory. We then see Saphira and her husband, Tommy, under the tree. Tommy was holding a gold coin with a pentagram symbol. "Sapphire, have you ever heard of the Herald clans?" Tommy asked. She thought of heralds. In her memory, she was shown the image of powerful people, true warriors in divine celestial armor. They are the murderers of holiness, and they are soulless, right? Yes, this gold coin is the Emperor's gold. He is able to summon those who have no soul, Tommy said to his wife. Sapphire held the coin in her hand. "But Tommy, be careful. If you have this, the interrogators at the king's church will execute you if they catch you with it." He then smiled at her with an air of premonition, kissing her. "Just in case, my dearest love. If something happens to us, they say that if you draw a triangle on the ground and place the gold coin in the middle, then a herald will appear and help you. She drew a triangle on the cracked ground, remembering her husband's warning. The effect that would occur after placing the coin in the middle of the triangle, the lights and the dimensional portal that would open. Tommy had said he hoped they would never need to use it. Back in reality, Saphira was trapped against her husband, against her body, crying and crying. Only one day left. Just today. If she held on, the heralds would appear. Further ahead in the camp, at some guardhouses and walls, hypocritical men were bathing, wasting water unnecessarily, while many people were thirsty, showing how cynical they were. Zebeck was looking at the sun and wondering how the weather had changed so much, stating, "It's too hot today." The Tyrant, the feudal lord's son, came close to Zebeck. "Smile. Isn't this fun? Kill them, the citizens? We won't be able to collect the taxes," Zebeck said, trying to argue. The Tyrant continued his insolence. "The dissatisfied vagrants are moving away, while the amount of thievery is increasing." He wore a soldier's cloak and dripped his venom. "Agriculture depends on the skill of an individual, on the soil, the climate, the sky, and the king's light. Isn't this what the king and the church teach?" He spoke with a sarcastic, mocking smile, revealing himself to be a true tyrant. Zebeck was furious, clenching his fists in an act of silent disobedience. He listened to this as if it were the most idiotic thing he'd ever heard, and his look said, "This guy thinks just because he's Mr. Feudal's son, he can do whatever he wants. Eventually the bill will come due." The Tyrant then confronted him about the drought. "The reason they are experiencing a drought is because they are unfaithful to the king's church. Isn't that what the doctrine says?" "That's a widespread interpretation," Zebeck said. "Someone made the soil rich, and someone else made the drought come. So we should punish the sinners, and those who contributed to making the soil rich should receive land." The Tyrant smiled evilly. "Then, if you want to go against my orders and save them, do your best." With his look, he was trying to say that if Zebeck betrayed him, he would pay the consequences. Later, the camp remained empty. The city was ravaged by the sun and drought. That late afternoon, Zebeck decided to go see Saphira. Arriving at the scene of the incident, the ordeal, Zebeck approached her. The woman was lying on the ground, having fainted in her final moments of life, but the coin in the center of the triangle glowed brightly. Zebeck exclaimed, "Yes, I knew it. It's completely useless. Let the heralds come." At that moment, something sinister happened. A mist enveloped the place, and a sword-wielding being, with arrows in its back, pointed its sword at the neck of Zebeck, the Tyrant Lord's knight commander. He threatened the man. "I'll cut you right here if you move, so don't turn around." It was a herald. Yes, they finally came to the rescue at the woman's call. Zebeck paused and thought, "But wait a minute, what's going on?" Suddenly brandishing a sword in such a desolate place. His technique is almost like a ghost. But who is this swordsman behind me? If I move now, I'll surely be executed. With the sword before his neck, completely defenseless, he asked, "Are you a herald? That herald the woman was talking about? Are you serious?" And then the herald would answer, "Yes. Are you a knight? Or have you come to help? Why?" Zebeck would reply, "No, I am Zebeck, of the king's church." "Ah," the herald said. With a bandana over his eyes, he continued, "I get it now. I asked just in case, but you're not a contractor, are you?" It was a young man who, despite having his eyes covered, could see, reminiscent of Satoru Goju from the anime. He further threatened the knight, "If a holy knight of the king's church wants to make a contract, it will be quite an interesting sight to serve." "Are you trying to humiliate me?" Zebeck said quite angrily, looking sideways at him. At that moment, the herald looked at the sapphire on the ground and thought, "But wait, if you didn't hire me, who called me? So that girl was my employer? She's already dead, so I got a free coin." The young herald asked, with his sword still pointed at Zebeck, not understanding the situation. "May I know what is happening now?" Zebeck said, "If you sheathe your sword and put distance between us, then I will put my honor on the line and tell you what is happening." Something surreal happened. The herald, that mysterious young man with the black bandana, simply heard Zebeck's voice and moved away from him at an extraordinary speed, making Zebeck wonder if he was really a ghost. "But what exactly is this frightening aura?" The mysterious boy said, "It seems you're confident that you wouldn't be attacked easily. If I hadn't ambushed you, Well, that's fine. If you're a holy knight of the king's church, then courage is something you really must have. He was wearing his shiny, sensational armor. Zebeck asked, keeping his distance, "Are you a wizard?" The young man said, "Everyone in the Herald clan is a wizard except me, of course." Zebeck said, "So you're saying that what happened just now wasn't magic?" The mysterious young man spoke. "It is difficult to distinguish a superhuman physique from magic." Zebeck thought, "I don't understand what he's trying to say." He asked, "What's your name? And what's your rank as a herald?" And then he would reply, "I am Azadin, of the 108 spirits, the herald of the emperor." Zebeck thought, the 108 spirits are the lowest ranks of the Herald clan, but the movement he showed just now proves that he is far from ordinary. "So as you promised, tell me what happened," said young Azadin. We enter a scene where honor prevails. Azadin and Zebeck converse, and the herald takes in the entire situation as he looks down upon the city from the cliff. "The contract has been established," Azadin spoke. But at that moment, a voice came from the sky. In fact, as they talked and watched the devastation of the city, the catastrophe, we were shown something very interesting. An owl. Yes, an owl then descended from the sky and landed on Azadin's shoulders, saying, "The contract has been established. You answered the request, but the potential contractor died. It seems you ended up earning a gold coin for doing nothing. Azadin of the 108 spirits." Zebeck was in a state of incomprehension. After all, a talking owl? What just happened in front of me? The owl continued, "Now let us begin moving to complete another mission. Do not rest and begin moving immediately, Azadin of the 108 spirits." Azadin left in a hurry. However, Zebeck asked him to wait. If, because the contractor died, you are going to receive your reward and leave. Do you want the request to be completed? How strange, Azadin said to Zebeck. Your master will suffer, you know? That won't happen, you profane, soulless one. Zebeck grabbed his sword and drew it from his dagger with incalculable speed. Because I will defeat you here and now. Azadin paused and thought, you would shed blood with a sword that remained silent in the face of so much injustice. Even for you, that's sad. Azadin taunted Zebeck. Are you angry, Zebeck? With whom? With me? Of all people, you, even though you turned your back on so much injustice and watched that tyrant kill countless lives. Furious, Zebeck said, What do you know, you bastard? Azadin then spoke about the constellations. Humans can see the same things, but they feel different things. Just like the sight of them being devastated may look different to you compared to the eyes of other soldiers. Zebeck stopped and nodded. Indeed, I could do nothing. As a knight of the king's church, I must revere those who care for the bloodline of the divine king. I don't want to fight you, Holy Knight, Azadin said. If you feel sorry for the girl, then your sword is not my enemy. Azadin held Saphira's husband in his arms. Is there a shovel around? He asked, wanting to bury him. Zebeck asked, Are you going to bury them? I'll hold a funeral for them, Azadin exclaimed. Zebeck thought, Cazel, the king's son, wants them to be hung from trees, turned into undead, screaming in agony. And the act of burying corpses is practically the same as defying him. Azadin would say, If you don't have any, it's okay. And he would start digging the ground with his bare hands. At that moment, Zebeck grabbed his sword and threw it at the ground. The sword struck the ground, creating a crater that helped create the hole to bury the bodies. Azadin said a prayer. O Archangel of wisdom, courage, and mercy, have mercy on their souls. Zebeck asked, A man from the Herald clan using a prayer from the knights? That's strange to say the least. But Azadin proclaimed with a funny look on his face, Well, I like their ideology. What can I do, right? He continued seriously. If I don't stand by what I believe is right, my birth will have no meaning. What do you like about the Order of Knights? Zebeck asked. But Azadin ignored the situation, grabbed his bow and arrow, readying it for an attack. With the utmost calm in the world, he said, An individual you revere is approaching. At that moment, something surreal appeared before us. Zebeck entered a state of alert, and upon looking to the side, saw that the king's son, the Tyrant, had unexpectedly arrived with his army. The Tyrant spoke for Zebeck to hear, Did you like the farm girl? You should have told me then. The Tyrant proclaimed himself with his army. By the way, who the hell is this bastard? Azadin was pointing the arrow at him. Zebeck didn't like the situation at all. He found out I was watching the girl. There's a return of wind and heavily armed soldiers. Even I have no chance of winning. At that moment, Azadin, without warning, shot an arrow at lightning speed, catching one of the knights in the eye. The soldiers were left speechless. Zebeck asked, shocked. He managed to put an arrow in a soldier so far away in the middle of everyone in this situation. Who is this man? We were shown Azadin aiming another arrow while they hadn't even finished speaking. He launched the arrow at lightning speed, but the soldiers defended themselves with shields. However, the arrow was booby-trapped and poisoned, which latched onto a soldier's body and sent him falling to the ground. Zebeck asked, "Did his arrow pierce the shield until it curled up like a living snake?" Azadin continued, answering Zebeck as naturally as possible, as if he didn't have an enemy army before him. "As for your question now, you're asking me what I like about the Order of Knights, right? I like the idea that a person's worth is determined not by their birth, but by their beliefs and actions." He then readied another arrow. Just as someone born with the blood of the divine king who abuses and massacres his people cannot be considered noble. The tyrant son of the king was distraught, asking, "Who is this damned man?" Having said this, the tyrant gives an order from his horse to Zebeck. "That is an order. Kill this damned man." Azadin didn't wait for the order to be executed. He leaped upward in an incredibly surreal way that defies the laws of physics. We see him standing before the moon in glorious fashion, aiming his arrow. Everyone looks up, and as he fires, the arrow hits one of the soldiers in the eye. He's already knocking another, moving so quickly, without even hitting the ground, that he's already knocked down 2 soldiers. He's traveling at the speed of light, landing on top of some soldiers who were aiming their weapons at him. His speed is like a ghost. Everyone wonders, who is this man? He then makes movements that seem unsuitable for a human, almost impossible. He fires an arrow, which hits another soldier in the face and pierces a third. What brutality is this? The tyrant, the king's son, feels almost threatened, until an arrow goes past and grazes his ear. He bleeds but nearly dies. "His goal wasn't to kill me," the tyrant said. "He wants to disable them forever." In other words, Azadin doesn't want to kill his soldiers. He just wants to harm them because he thinks death would be too little for them. "You damned man, who the hell are you?" said the tyrant, distraught. "My name is Azadin," he proclaimed, as he chased the tyrant at a speed never before seen. "I am a herald," he continued. At that moment, the knights were saying, "A herald? Is he soulless?" And as the tyrant tried to turn to see his face, Azadin punched him in the face, sending him falling to the ground with all his might. Azadin then realized he had run out of arrows. The soldiers advanced, counter-attacking with their swords, but he dodged with incredible agility and countered, slapping the soldier in the face. He would say, "I've thinned your numbers with my arrows, so if you're brave enough, you can come." He would pick up a sword from the ground and immediately call them to battle. He continued, obsessed with his mission. "Trash like you who inflict pain on people deserves to suffer." He continued, "Wait, since this tyrant, son of the king of these lands, is obsessed with castration, just see what I'm going to do before I finish you off." With that said, as Azadin approached the tyrant to eliminate him, an orange light appeared out of nowhere, a light that illuminated everyone around him. The tyrant was trying to summon a hidden power within his amulet, a power that would take form. But before he could even use this ability, Azadin, without mercy, raised his sword and struck him in the chest with all his might. The tyrant, paralyzed by pain and suffering with one of his eyes pierced, spoke. "But what have you done to me, you soulless man?" Azadin played with him as if he were an animal with its prey. "Are you curious too? You still don't know what I did to you?" At that moment, the tyrant tried to negotiate his life. "Wait, what do you want from me? Tell me everything you want. Money? Women? Swords? I'll give you whatever you want. I'm a descendant of the sacred Yaegas family." Azadin continued speaking coldly. "Really? Unfortunately for you, I am a killer of the Herald's sanctity. I am a killer of sanctities, a herald." At that moment, he grabbed the tyrant by the hair and lifted him a little higher. The tyrant then shouted, as we saw his soldiers all annihilated, "Mr. Zebeck, what are you doing? Come on, help me, you insolent man." Zebeck, not wanting to interfere, said, "I can't see." Then the tyrant said to Azadin, "You damned man, I am noble, I am of a sacred bloodline. Just because I did that to those commoners, you are going to eliminate me? I think you will continue to live with great vigor," Azadin said. And he continued, "That is the right attitude, live positively." At that moment, Azadin took one of his daggers and transferred it to the tyrant's other eye, the only one he could see. The tyrant screamed in pain, for he was without both eyes, but he was still alive. With that, Azadin proclaimed the completion of a mission. The Emperor's law has been imposed. Now it is my time to go. He left and put away his dagger. But Zebeck cried out for him to hear. I am a knight of the king's church. I cannot let you who speak of the Emperor's law go unharmed. It does not matter if you are truly performing righteous acts. And he then stood with his sword drawn. Azadin said, Oh geez, you're not like the other knights of the king's church. Zebeck took this as an insult and said, You dare insult me? It wasn't a compliment, Azadin said. The other knights are nothing more than scoundrels forcibly expelled from their homes due to inheritance matters. He continued speaking, but Zebeck started to chase after him, but Azadin proclaimed, Are you going to catch up with me? Suddenly, a sinister aura appeared around him. Dark black lines, like mist, formed in front of his body. Just as Zebeck was about to attack, a portal simply appeared in front of him, and Azadin disappeared. We will meet again, if fate so wills, Lord Zebeck, he said as he vanished. Zebeck looked around, unsure of what had happened. A voice rang out. No one could kill Azadin of the Herald clan. We were left with permanent losses instead. His armies weren't killed, but they suffered permanent losses. Some were missing eyes, others arms. Zebeck reflected on the situation and agreed with Azadin, saying that the soulless man was right. That applies to me too. He said, I can feel a weight lifting off my chest now. For years I turned a blind eye to what the tyrant did. Thank goodness he's dead. The scene cuts to some peasants asking a lord to exempt them from the excessive taxes they are currently paying, bowing before a man on the throne. We beg the Lord, all the people are fleeing and becoming nomads. And those who die of hunger are wandering the streets like the living dead. We are being overrun by thieves and monsters, and I'm sorry, but we won't be able to pay the taxes. Despite Azadin's actions, the suffering continued. The scene cuts to some peasants begging a lord to exempt them from the exorbitant taxes, bowing before the man seated on the throne. That man was Magrav Cazel, the father of the tyrant who had just been neutralized by Azadin. Cazel said with contempt, Shameless. At this rate, you'll end up begging for food too. As soon as he looked at the peasant with that feline gaze, the man trembled to his core. Please forgive us. We are at the end of our lives already, the peasants pleaded. Nothing will change the inferior blood that runs in your veins. Cazel then surprised them. If you wish, I will provide relief for you. A wicked smile appeared on his face, on the condition that you do not consider granting my request. In the peasant's imagination, the reward for this was to be eliminated in the public square, reinforcing the fear that Cazel inspired in them. Cazel was serious, and summoning a grimoire with his fire magic, he said, Fear not. All you are asking for is just one page. This is the nature of this grimoire. The ignorant peasants replied, We are ignorant. It is magic that we do not know anything about this. Not at all. All the ignorant like you will be able to find it. If you simply long for it, for good lives, it will answer your call and reveal itself. If you can bring me a grimoire like this, you will exempt the village from taxes for 3 years and provide 50 sacks of wheat, barley, and oats, Cazel promised. They were stunned. But don't we at least need to know the grimoire's name to be able to search for it? One of the men asked. At that moment, the illusionary magic of the red grimoire's image fell apart, and Cazel spoke the name. A copy of the Divine King's book. The villagers were shocked, wondering how they could obtain something so stupefying. Emerging from the curtain, a serpent suddenly transformed into a beautiful woman. She spoke. I feel that mentioning the name of the Book of the Divine King was a bit careless, Count. Count Cazel spoke. Nonsense, everyone here in the village and in the kingdom is looking for this grimoire, aren't they? Rumors will spread across the entire continent soon. It would be wise to find at least a single page before they do. He confronted the woman. So, witch, what do you want? The witch, in response, gave the terrible news. I am forced to tell you that your son has just died. He ended up being a victim. In the east, Lord Cazel did not survive your son. Magrav Cazel simply did not believe it. Lord Zebeck is with him. There is nothing to fear, for he is a mighty knight. However, the witch continued. No, their opponent was the Herald clan. The Herald clan? The old man exclaimed. Well, I'm sure they're after the Book of the Divine King, too. If they wish to be free from the curse of their devourers, then they'll definitely need the book after all, Cazel asked in a daze. Is Cazel dead, my son? I heard he lost the sight in both eyes and his reproductive organs were damaged. What will the Lord do? He then said, Send the soldiers to the surroundings and kill the Herald clan. The woman said, Understood, I will contact the commander. Don't make someone else do it, he said, grabbing the woman and placing her on his lap, showing great interest in her. If my son was castrated, then I'll have to make another one. The scene cuts, and the harsh reality hits Azadin. He was under the scorching sun, on the cracked earth, on the verge of exhaustion. He said, exhausted, This is bad. I'm going to die at this rate again. The owl immediately rebuked him. Why did you have to put on that little show saying you would arrive in 2 days, you foolish spirit? Azadin retorted, defending his clan's decaying honor. You dare speak impertinently with the Emperor's mouth? Frankly, because of the Emperor who died without a plan, we, your former heralds, are despised. We are called saint killers and soulless heretics. The owl, the voice of the Emperor, continued his lamentations. Thanks to your little show, I gave up my luggage and came running. I'm dying of thirst and I have no food. I'm going to die of hunger too. As they talked, a spectral light appeared. The spirits of the people hanging from the trees. The ghosts began to circle the place. One of them warned, This land has neither the light of the king's virtue nor the blessing of the archangels. It is not good to stay here for long. Azadin assured them, My friends, I have already avenged your grudges, so please go to the afterlife. Instead of disappearing, one of the ghosts, a woman, pointed to a well. Azadin, irritated by thirst, relented. I want to drink quickly. But when he pulled out the bucket, he found no water, but a piece of paper with a mysterious symbol. The scene cut, revealing the story of his curse. The Herald clan, originally known as Aragadza, was a foreign race that landed on the continent of Webris. Wybris was ruled by 8 divine kings of the Yaegas family, but Emperor Islat of the Ibsen family monopolized power, subjugating the other 7 holy kings. Emperor Islat, determined to eliminate the remaining holy kings, offered the Aragadzas, who needed a home, a terrible deal. He gave them the grimoire and the spirit called the Emperor's Voice. In return, the foreigners signed a contract, becoming the Heralds, the Emperor's sword, agent, and executioner. Their hands were mercilessly stained with the blood of God as they executed evil nobles who opposed imperial law. This was considered the most terrible sin in Wybris, which believed in eternal life. When Emperor Islat died, the empire disintegrated. The Aragatsa were scorned, called the soulless heralds. Worse still, the eternal contract they had signed remained in effect. Even with the emperor's death, the heralds were bound to him forever. He then looked at the paper in his hand, noticing its strange shape. If I collect this, will I really be able to escape the curse of duty? He wondered, then corrected himself. It's rude to call it a curse. It's an honorable duty over a contract. Damn, this really had to fall into my hands. Fate is no joke. The owl questioned, You don't look happy. Isn't this what all the heralds wanted? She recalled the 2 rules imposed on them. First, fulfill the duties of the service contract and collect 100,000 gold coins. Second, acquire the Book of the Divine King. If you succeed, you will be able to escape the curse of duty. These were the only 2 rules imposed on them. Well, that is indeed the herald's goal, Azadin said thoughtfully. But I'm worried that this will start spreading throughout the world. He revealed a personal connection. The reason the Book of the Divine King was divided in the first place was because of my father. As Azadin walked, thinking about the headquarters and the book, the scene changed. We saw someone looking down at him from a dungeon, perhaps a woman. She exclaimed with contempt, That's him? The son of the clan's worst traitor? He's talentless, powerless, and an idiot. Her companion asked, Does he really not know how to use magic and is cursed? The young woman Midian replied, I don't know if he's cursed, but I know for sure he can't use magic. I heard he wet the bed until he was 8, and he can't even string a bow. I doubt he's even capable of performing the duty of the heralds. The companion suggested, So, Miss Midian, how about we go back? No, I need to work for the lowest-ranking herald since I'm related to the contractor. She insisted, How about we test his skill since he's a lower-ranking herald? They probably won't even notice us coming. The boy was surprised. We can't do that. Understood. The dungeon encounter and the surprise arrow Midian ignored his companion's warning. In his thoughts, His contempt for Azadin was evident. Who cares? If I win, the position will be mine. There's no way I can lose. It'll be bad if he dies, so I'll shoot the arrowhead. She criticized Azadin's master. He's a student of the temperamental elder Cazel, always has a what-if in every situation. Midian concluded mentally that the master didn't matter. No matter how amazing Cazel is, an idiot is still an idiot, even if he trains for 10 or 100 years. The young warrior seethed at the injustice. The son of a traitor who can't even use magic, and yet he's a herald. He's just taking up space, and so competent people like me can't become heralds. She then extended her blunt arrow and with extraordinary precision took aim and shot from the top of the hill. Just as the arrow was about to strike Azadin, the unimaginable happened. A reversal of speed and force. Azadin vanished into thin air and then lashed out with a rock, striking and counter-striking the girl, who fell to the ground. Azadin, now materialized in front of her, asked, "Was it you who shot the arrow?" Midian was in complete shock. But how did he get here? I couldn't sense his presence. She tried to reason. "Wait, don't tell me he took the arrows I shot along the way into his quiver." "What is your name?" asked Azadin, addressing the girl and the fighting boy. "I am Midian of Atar," she replied. "My name is Ishmael," said the boy. Midian, trying to disguise his attack, forced a mocking smile. "Your quiver seemed empty, so I wanted to give you my arrows. Isn't that the best kind of assistance?" Azadin coldly called her bluff. "It seems you applied to be my assistant because you were bored in the Holy Land," he finished imposingly. "Let's go home, children." The girl, offended, emphasized her lineage. "I'm sure I said I'm of Atar's bloodline." Azadin was categorical, disdaining the aristocracy. "Don't you know that bloodlines have no meaning for the heralds? If you come to work for me, you are now my subordinates. And yet you shot arrows at me. Perhaps you want me to teach you a lesson and show you what happens when you do something like that outside the Holy Land?" Midian thought, astonished. He is so different from what the rumors say. The narrative continues exactly from the point where Azadin confronts Midian and Ishmael after the surprise attack. The challenge for the herald position. Midian thought, shocked. He's so different from what the rumors say. Is he really the person people make fun of and bully? Azadin then softened his tone, but asserted authority. "I apologize for being rude, Midian. And if you want something from me, then show me respect. Either as a member of the Aragaza or as my enemy, which will it be?" His supreme aura pressed down on the young woman. Midian immediately formalized the retraction, acknowledging the lineage. "I, Midian of Atar, apologize for my rudeness to the Herald Azadin. I am an Aragaza. I accept your apology," Azadin agreed. "However, do not shoot anyone with your arrows from now on. If you do not plan to kill them, weapons should not be handled like toys outside the Holy Land." "Yes, sir," she replied. Azadin tried to conclude, "I won't say anything bad, so go back to the Holy Land, your homes. I don't need assistance." He turned to them and asked, still suffering from thirst, "Do you have any water?" But before Azadin could finish speaking, Midian interrupted him with a formal challenge. "I request a duel," Ishmael protested. "No, that man is dangerous." Midian was determined. Yes, he is different from the rumors. Forget about being an idiot. He is strong, intelligent, and proud. She clenched her fists. "But I wouldn't be such a coward if I didn't challenge him just because he is strong. Herald Azadin, I, Midian of Atar, officially challenge you for your position as herald." "Absolutely. I'll expand on this sequence, giving more weight to Azadin's authority, Midian's boldness, and the frightening formality of the herald's duel." The imposition of authority and the formal challenge. Midian was in shock. His mind processed the truth. Is he really the person people make fun of and bully? Azadin's reputation was a sham. She clenched her fists and replied, filled with new conviction. "Yes, he's different from the rumors. Forget about being an idiot. He's strong, intelligent, and proud. But I wouldn't be such a coward if I didn't challenge him just because he's strong." She fixed her eyes on Azadin, declaring the rules of combat officially. "Herald Azadin, I, Midian of Atar, officially challenge you for your position as herald." Ishmael was paralyzed. A duel in that world was a declaration of war of honor, something impossible to back down from. Azadin snorted in irritation. Oh my gosh, a duel? Ariel was a bad influence on these kids, he thought. He confirmed the rules of the game. "Are you going to take my position?" "Yes, I will win. But you know what will happen if I win, right?" Midian accepted the supreme stakes without hesitation. Of course, everything that is mine, including my life, will be yours. I am prepared. Azadin was worried. He had already sensed the threat of a rival, and Midian was dangerously underestimating him. He tried to dissuade her, dropping the name of a legendary rival. But who is Ril anyway? You should give up before it's too late. Ril is the only one who can win against the Herald. I'm aware I don't have the best reputation, but I didn't get this position for nothing. Midian ignored the warning. She stepped away and positioned herself 100 meters away, formalizing the final protocol. Here and now, I challenge you, Azadin, to a duel. Fate sealed the confrontation. The Raven, the voice of the Emperor, a spirit assigned to each herald, passing by declared, "The duel is valid. The herald Azadin accepts the duel." Azadin gritted his teeth, knowing he was trapped. "Dude, seriously, I'm going to waste my time with this girl." With the Emperor's spirit as his witness, the challenge was now irresistible. Midian, oblivious to the gravity of Azadin's situation, just thought, "This is no good. I just need to win." Absolutely. The fight had been sealed. Under the blazing sun, the fight between Azadin and Midian began and ended in the blink of an eye. Midian lost and fainted from the shock of the blow. Azadin was finally drinking water, while Midian and Ishmael lay frustrated and disappointed. Ishmael was in shock, analyzing, what's happening? He could barely process the speed of the defeat. An archery technique suited to the battlefield, sacrificing pressure for shooting speed. This is definitely an extreme form of Aragaza technique. In his thoughts, Ishmael tried to understand how Azadin was so strong. Midian didn't even have a chance to defend himself, even using magic. He remembered the fight. Azadin even used stones as projectiles, treating Midian like a child. He was simply unreal, and he won that fight effortlessly. At that moment, Ismail replayed the final blow. Azadin's speed was superhuman, creating mirages in the air. Azadin moved, counterattacking Midian from behind so quickly that she barely noticed. When she managed to defend herself by summoning her magic, Azadin simply countered the spell and delivered a brutal punch to the young woman's ribs, slamming her into a giant boulder. Ishmael was perplexed by the violence and effectiveness of the Herald. Ishmael's fury exploded. After all, they say he's a traitor in our village. And the blood relative of a traitor just did this to the daughter of one of the noblest bloodlines? This is unforgivable, you damned inferior. How dare you? Ishmael shouted, running towards Azadin. The duel was over, with Midian unconscious from the brutal blow. The voice of the wise, the owl guiding Azadin, pronounced the formal sentence, ignoring Ishmael's anger. Midian of Ater, you challenged the position of Herald of Azadin and lost. Your fate now lies in the hands of the Herald of Azadin. Then the spirit decreed Ishmael's fate. Ishmael, because of your interference in the duel, will also become the property of the Herald, along with Midian. The two young men trembled, unable to believe that they had lost everything. Desperate, Midian grabbed her knives and tried to take her own life. But, in an instant reflex, Azadin acted, throwing his dagger to the ground to stop the act. "I knew you would try something like this," Azadin said, looking at the girl, while Ishmael remained perplexed. Azadin was relentless. "Young lady, by losing the duel you have no right to die. Hell, you can only die when I die, or when I want you to die." He scoffed. "You actually challenged me to a duel like that without knowing." Midian was stunned. "Who is this girl?" Azadin asked, with a mocking smile on his face. Finishing the water he had just drunk, Azadin threw the bottle to Ishmael and surprised everyone. "I suppose that was enough to teach you a good lesson. I will release you both." "What?" they both said, shocked. Azadin had declared, "I will release them both." Midian and Ishmael were shocked. Azadin then explained why. "Forgive me? Will you forgive me? That's worse than dying." He hurried away. "Let's just pretend this duel never happened. It would be bad if this went down in your record, wouldn't it?" The two young men were upset, looking like two spoiled children. Azadin began to leave, but Midian and Ishmael, against the order, began to pursue him. Azadin spoke impatiently. "I told you I don't need slaves. I have already freed you, so go back to the Holy Land." But they kept following him. Midian was visibly disappointed. "You just took in a beautiful, talented young girl as your slave, and you're just going to free her like that? This is unforgivable. How embarrassing." Azadin returned the criticism. "I don't know about the beautiful part, but if you were as talented as Ariel, you wouldn't have lost. He gave a stern warning. There are many guys in the world who like younger girls, and many cultivate the custom of child marriage. It would be wise to think before proposing a duel next time. Azadin looked at them, finishing his advice. In fact, never challenge anyone to a duel again. If there's someone you want to kill, just kill them. Ishmael thought, he talks a lot more than I expected, but it seems he's saying all this out of genuine concern. Midian, however, had an unexpected reaction. She was enchanted. Looking at her, we see that she was simply smitten with Azadin. With a love-struck smile on her face, she murmured, "This is something new," which made the scene even funnier as the chase continued. And that's it. Azadin's journey toward the Book of the Divine King has just begun, and he has gained 2 unexpected followers, Midian and Ishmael, whose lives he spared. The scene cuts, and we see the outcome of the Herald clan story. The contract sealed between the Emperor and the Yaegas clan was originally a symbol of loyalty and honor. It stipulated that both would provide for each other's needs, and that any traitor would suffer a terrible death. However, after the Emperor's death, this agreement became a horrible curse. The effects of the contract remained intact, binding the Yaegas clan to eternal service, an endless cycle of servitude. Finally, this cycle began to show signs of breaking. The Yaegas secured victory in the War of Succession and obtained a copy of the Book of the Divine King. However, a notorious traitor named Akri stole the book and fled. After countless searches, Akri, the traitor, was finally captured and taken to be punished. He was chained between rocks, imprisoned on a single rock in the middle of an endless abyss. A hooded man threatened him. "Hand over the copy of the Book of the Divine King before you taste terrible pain." The clan tried all sorts of methods to make him confess the book's location, but Akri always appeared confident, with a smile on his face, without fear of death. The clan's hope, however, was shattered and vanished. In his final act of betrayal, Akri scattered the pages of the book, scattering them across the World Heart Mountains and the rest of the world. Akri became the first person to die from the contract curse, and through this curse he gave birth to twins in a man's body, Azadin and Ariel. Ironically, between the 2 brothers, Ariel became the strongest herald in the clan's history, while Azadin was always considered an idiot. We return to Azadin's scene after the fight against Midian. He is deep in thought. Midian looks at him and thinks, who spread such an absurd rumor? An idiot? He's nothing like that. On the contrary, he's very strong. Azadin continues walking under the scorching sun, the cracked earth. "I clearly said that I have no intention of taking you with me. So do not follow me," Azadin ordered. "We're not following you," Midian replied. "We just have something to give you." She handed over a letter with Salasma's symbol in the middle of it, an unmistakable symbol. Azadin took the letter with trepidation. "That old man doesn't like me. What does he want?" He read the contents of the regional chief's letter. "Okay, let's ignore the hassle about the missing reports. Copies of the Book of the Divine King have been turning up recently, so retrieve them. It'll be reflected in your performance review." Azadin continued reading, understanding the situation. Judging by what is written here, the other heralds must be aware of the copy. He looked up at Midian. "Midian, it says here that copies of the Divine King's book have been appearing recently. Were you also aware of this?" Midian replied with a smile. "Of course we were." She continued, "Of course we knew. Your father betrayed the clan." Before she could speak about the scattering of the pages, Ishmael kicked Midian in the shin, forcing her to shut up and review what she was about to reveal. Absolutely. Here's the sequel, detailing Azadin's acceptance of his new followers, the journey, and the violent encounter with the bandits at the oasis. New followers and the spring in the desert. Azadin was surprised to hear Midian and Ishmael's story. "So even you 2 know this story, do you?" He decided on his next step. "For now, I'll have to go to Salasma to meet the regional chief. Thank you for delivering this letter to me." Ishmael and Midian were still fighting when she caught up with him. Midian stopped and exclaimed, "You know, Azadin, since we're going in the same direction, can we follow you? I can tell you what's going on back at the clan, too." Azadin stopped and replied indifferently, "Since this street isn't just mine, you can follow me if you want." Ishmael, seeing this shocking scene, began to wonder what these 2 were thinking after all. Further on, under the scorching sun, they stopped to rest. We then see that they used magical bulls as pillows for the journey. Azadin woke up and stretched, calling Midian and Ishmael to wake up too. They began walking, each with his own animal. As they walked a little further, they were overjoyed. They found a spring of water practically in the middle of the scorching desert. Midian climbed down to get the water with his bag, while Azadin was already gathering his. As they were getting water, suddenly someone called out. It was a man and some other citizens, or subjects, who were saying, "Hey, you guys, who let you get water from our spring? Who said you can get water from our spring?" Azadin positioned himself, preventing Midian from entering attack mode. "I have no intention of fighting with you. What do you want in return?" The man, with a smile on his face and a sinister aura, replied, "All of you, of course." Azadin continued, seeking one last chance to avoid combat. "Just to be sure, is there no chance we can negotiate?" Those peasants then insulted him. "You have a lot to say for a grown man. What's with that mask? What are you, a clown?" The leader, who was actually a bandit, ordered, "Capture the girl and kill the other two." The scene cuts to the bandits all lying on the ground. 3 of them are badly injured, begging Azadin to spare them. "We're just innocent people," Ismail asked suspiciously. "Aren't they bandits?" Azadin, wearing his mask, listened intently, looking clueless. The bandits, desperate, revealed, "We've just been recruited. Maghrave Cazel's sons are forcing us, recruiting people left and right, making them look for a copy of a book." They complained, "How are we supposed to find something we don't even know what it is? So we're just wandering around aimlessly, until, as bad luck would have it," one of them corrected himself, "I mean, by great luck we found someone as noble as you." Midian wondered, what if they are just thieves making excuses? Azadin, aware of the situation, replied, "I doubt it. This is not a road that travelers or merchants normally travel on." Of course. Here's the sequel, detailing Azadin's brutal justice and the introduction of the new threat, without bullet points. Midian continued the conversation pragmatically. "Well, we'll have to kill them to silence them." She was already drawing her dagger, but Azadin stopped her. "Midian, I don't kill without reason." Ismail intervened, concerned for safety. "But the right thing to do would be to eliminate them. Even if they really were good people, there's a chance we'll expose our tracks if we let them come." Azadin stood his ground. "But that doesn't mean I should kill them for my own comfort. Everyone deserves a second chance." The bandits, disguised as villagers, took the opportunity to flatter him. "Yes, of course. People's lives are very important indeed, as expected of someone so noble. You are so kind. I assure you that great fortune will be bestowed upon you and your family through your mercy." Azadin walked over and shushed them, his aura changing drastically. "Shut up!" He approached the bandit and punched him in the face without mercy, which ended up gouging his eye. "Make sure you don't move too much," Azadin warned. "One wrong move and your face will be blown off." The bandits protested, terrified. "But you promised you wouldn't spare us." "Yes, I will spare you," Azadin replied, his voice thick with menace. "But only after I have caused you permanent damage, so that you will not harm anyone else, even if you do not immediately regret it." At this point, with a sinister aura, Azadin attacked the remaining 2 bandits, ensuring the damage was irreversible. "I think this is good enough now," he concluded. Ishmael and Midian looked at the scene in disbelief. What is this guy thinking? The Raven of Wisdom watched in silence. The now crippled bandits walked away, screaming in pain. "Hey, I'm never having kids now! My balls! That son of a bitch!" As the bandits walked away, something sinister appeared before them. A monstrous hand suddenly grabbed one of the bandits' heads and simply pulled it off his neck. It was a large, powerful orc ogre with an axe in his hand. He threw the humans into a basket, saying they were food for later. The horrifying scene continued with the ogre stepping over the corpses. The ogre picked up one of the corpses and threw it to his subordinates, the goblins. The bloodthirsty ogre, with feline teeth and a murderous look on his face, saw a village of humans and found it very interesting. "A big, strong fortress and more food," he said. "Meat everywhere." A few minutes later, Azadin and his team continued walking. Midian broke the silence. "At first I thought you were taking it easy, so I wasn't surprised. But I think it's not a bad strategy until we get all the weapons back," she speculated about Azadin's calculated cruelty. Azadin responded, making clear the gravity of his actions. "It's difficult to understand others without having been in their shoes. Losing an eye has greater consequences than you can imagine." Azadin explained why he spared the bandits. "The people they would have terrorized with their attacks are now the figments of their nightmares. It's a good opportunity for them to redeem themselves for their actions." Ishmael nodded in his mind. "Yes, a good opportunity for redemption. He then spoke aloud. You spared their lives and even gave them the chance to purify their souls. Suddenly, Azadin's expression changed. However, that conversation was bothering you, he said. Midian asked, What conversation, Azadin? They said Margrave Cazel is looking for a copy of the Book of the Divine King, he revealed. But Margrave Cazel lost the succession struggle. Ishmael thought aloud. Do you think maybe he's trying to climb the hierarchy using a book to gain magical power? He realized the danger. A political figure determined to seize power. That's dangerous. Azadin agreed. We will have to be careful until we leave Margrave Cazel's territory. He pondered his identity. I will have to remove this mask, for it shows that I am a herald. At that moment, something surreal happened. When he removed his mask from his face, Azadin simply revealed himself as an eyeless person. He is blind in both eyes. Ishmael was astonished. Azadin, but you don't even seem to have any difficulty. How is that possible? Azadin replied with frightening naturalness. I don't know either. I've simply been able to see without seeing since I was born. Midian approached in disbelief and examined his eyeballs, which were not there. Azadin asked, What is it? Speak if you have anything to say. Midian then snapped sincerely and rudely. You look better if I think you were hurt. You looked like you were handsome until you had an accident and lost your eyes. I think it's better to have that scar than a pretty face with horrible eyes. Azadin was perplexed. What? Ishmael defended him. Midian, you are being extremely rude now. Azadin then made a shocking revelation. The one who gave me this wound said the same thing. Ishmael and Midian asked, shocked, Who? Azadin said bitterly, It was Arael. She said it was strange for me not to have what should be there, and that she could at least imagine there was something there if she had a scar. Azadin concluded, Your own sister. She cut my face, saying it was better this way. He continued, Well, thanks to that, I was able to pretend to be blind. I didn't have any problems when I was alone, but Midian, without losing his pragmatism, interrupted. So, we just need to pretend you're blind, right? Azadin replied, not paying much attention to the snide comment. It's all right. Further ahead, they found the great city, imposing, with its high walls and houses. They walked there and entered the long line of merchants and people waiting to enter the gates. Ismail commented, I can see the gates, but the line is really long. Azadin, dressed in beggar's clothes, surveyed the landscape. It's been a while since I've been to the gate to the eastern village. Midian asked excitedly, This is also the village where the Imperial Road begins. What do you think? Isn't it a great starting point for our journey? Azadin replied, maintaining his disguise. Shut up. I am a lone pilgrim, and you are two brats who happened to come with me. Ismail made a sarcastic joke. Oh, those begging eyes. The line moved slowly, and the soldiers were searching everyone who entered. Azadin asked, Were these things like this the last time you came? The soldiers searched a man in front of them, taking valuables and robbing him outright. Midian muttered, That's practically robbery. Azadin replied, No, things weren't this bad before. Something has changed. He deduced, I see. They're looking for something. If they're digging this deep, then they must be, for example, after the page of the Holy Book. A citizen in line asked Azadin, Hey, can't you see? Oh no, Azadin replied. These two eggs are on a pilgrimage with me. The citizen showed empathy. Tell so, this must be difficult. Not at all, Azadin replied, taking the opportunity to fish for information. But what's going on? The man replied, Haven't you heard the rumors that there are copies of the Divine King's book floating around? The Divine King's book? Azadin feigned ignorance. Yes, rumor has it that a herald made a copy of the Divine King's book after stealing it, and these copies are turning up everywhere. Those bastards at Margrave Cazel are looking for them right now. Still, with all this mess, the man asked Azadin, So there must be more than one loser like this? He pretended not to know. This isn't good, Azadin thought. One of the pages of the book was hidden in his chest. This is going to be a bit of a pain to deal with. Corruption was blatant. One man complained, I need money to feed my family. Aren't you looking for the Book of the Divine King? Then why are you taking my money? The soldier hit him. Let me go. The man fell to the ground, hurt. The soldier mocked. A grimoire can come in all shapes and sizes. Who knows if this isn't a grimoire shaped like money? We'll take a good look and return it to you later if it's not the book. The man's daughter tried to intervene, saying that this was robbery and that stealing was a bad thing. The soldiers threatened her. "Don't you know it's bad to threaten an adult?" The father tried to protect her. "Stop! You're threatening a child, that's violence." One of the soldiers retaliated with a punch to the stomach, which made him fall to the ground in pain. They said, "Teach her some manners, got it? Next in line." At that moment, as the line approached, someone came to the soldier's ear and whispered something. As the line approached, the soldier's whisper led to a sudden commotion. Soon, a commotion began to break out inside and outside the city. "What the hell is going on?" the villagers asked. "Why are they leaving?" "They spotted an ogre nearby," Azadin revealed, relying on his superior hearing. Immediately, the soldiers closed the gates and left the citizens outside to die. The desperate citizens made a great commotion, demanding that the gates be opened. "Let's talk, wait!" Inside the walls in the camp, one of Magrav Cazel's sons, Tarkiev, confirmed, "Are you sure they closed the gates, right?" One of the soldiers replied, "Yes, sir, we are sure." Tarkiev arrogantly declared, "We've already confirmed that there's no copy of the Divine King's book here. So let's leave with what we've got." He ordered the guards. "Finish off the ogre and any monster that approaches. You've trained enough to handle them." One man, indignant, retorted, "You only trained us for 1 day. Then at least let the people outside in. I would command the defense." Tarkiev scoffed, "You're not even a knight. What can you do?" In the end, he gave in dismissively. "Fine, leave it to you. That's good enough for now. Let's go." With that, Tarkiev fled, hurriedly leaving. At this moment, the ground began to shake. The people outside screamed desperately, "Where do we go now? We're going to be eaten by the monsters. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." We then see that those bandits whose eyes Azadin had wounded were inside the ogre's basket as a food supply. They looked out the lid and saw countless orcs and ogres attacking the city. The main ogre arrived near the gate, ready to attack the humans. A massive line formed at the gate's entrance. A very tired woman, holding a lantern, addressed Azadin's group. "The entrance will get worse and worse as time goes on. Please guide your younger sister and uncle as well. This is an extra lantern, so hold on tight," she said, handing it to Ishmael. "Thank you. I'll take care of my uncle, so please don't worry," Midian replied with a smile. Azadin stood still, thinking. It seems people act much better if I play blind. A soldier in front of the gates shouted, "The knights and mercenaries have left. However, we must remember to protect the village." He appealed, "We ask those who can fight to stay here and fight alongside us. It's okay, just provide support. This way we will defend the village. The wounded elders will be able to escape a little faster." At that moment, an old man said to his daughter, "Cosette, your father is going to fight too. I will protect you, Cosette." Cosette replied in disbelief, "That you can't even cut an apple, father," speaking the cruel truth to the villagers. Midian commented indignantly, "I can't believe that the knights who live to serve the people are expelling their own people. What a disgrace. It's so pathetic and disgusting." Azadin responded, analyzing the situation. "They may be people of hubris, but instead of driving out the people they are supposed to protect, they seem to think it is a wonderful effect." Midian agreed. "I think so. It would be strange for an Yaegas to sympathize with the people of hubris." "I don't care. I feel that way too," Azadin retorted. Azadin then declared, "Let us part ways here." When Midian looked back, he saw black smoke surrounding Azadin's body. Before he could react, he simply vanished. With that, the people entered the wall and began to take up positions with bows, arrows, and spears. When they looked down, they saw that the ogres had arrived. To their surprise, there were far more of them than they expected, and there was a giant ogre leader. The ogre, with red eyes and sinister canine teeth, spoke. "My name is Goldu." His order was clear. "We have stored meat. We will eat plenty for a long time. We know how to invest, clever ogres. Long line of humans, lots of meat." He began to stamp his feet and said, "The ogre is their leader." The order was given to shoot arrows. The arrows were fired relentlessly, but the chief ogre used his own body as a shield to allow the smaller goblins to break through the wall. The men shouted, "Secure the gates! Shoot what's near us!" The goblins advanced, pounding on the gates with axes in fury. The giant ogre picked up a rock and threw it at the gate, causing enormous damage. At that moment, the old man who was in the queue told his daughter, Cosette, to run away as quickly as possible. Suddenly, one of the goblins used magic. He lifted his candlestick with a stone facing upward, which caused the artifact to react. This identified the Book of the Divine King as being there on one of the pages due to its response to the magic. The goblin concluded, "The wand responded. The Book of the Divine King is near." The end of this segment. So, what will happen in this battle between Azadin and the mutant Globlin? The monster has transformed into a surreal force, the King of Fangs, while Azadin fights atop the ogre's head. The energy of the Book of the Divine King is at stake, and the village is being destroyed. Well, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this and want to find out how Azadin will deal with this new threat, whether he can protect the village and find the sacred book, comment, "I want part 2 Kainan." Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like.